My name is Adam Kanal, and I am a collaborative composer. Join me in the search for a career in classical music. This is the Making Noise podcast. Record. Is it recording in your on your screens?
Yep, all good.
Thumbs up. I love that. I love that. I have to say right off the bat, two things is your professionalism with corresponding via email, spot on. I was like, we can get into that a little bit more. And then the second thing I want to say is what just happened. Like, so for everyone listening and watching this podcast when this is published, of course, but Alinéa was so kind to use their Zoom account so that we can have as much time as we want to do this podcast. So those two things right off the bat, thank you.
Adam, it's awesome that you bring up the emails. Robbie has largely been running our email department. But that was actually one of the things that we were really careful and intentional about when reaching out to composers for Everything But the Kitchen Sink. Was I sat down and I wrote, I think, 20 individual emails to composers. We got 19 yeses, one who we never managed to schedule time with and one who said no. But it was like everybody's was a personal note from us about why we liked the music and why we wanted them on the podcast. So the whole professional email has actually been a really big part of how we make connections, how we build what we do, is reaching out with a level of professionalism to say, trust us, we know what we're doing, even if we really usually don't.
Sure. Yeah. Well, that's the thing too, is I think more often than not, in everything in life, it's like you fake it till you make it. You know, and like with performing, for example, that first time you get on stage and you go to perform, it's like the hand is shaking and like, you know, you prepare as much as you can. But once you're out there, you don't know what it's like until you're out there. So
yeah, absolutely.
That's amazing. I got to say, yeah, Robbie, kudos to you, man, for the, you know, yeah, exactly.
Trying my best.
It's so funny seeing you all do that because your mics are muted, but it makes sense. I appreciate it. Yeah. So let's jump back a little bit. Let's jump back a little bit with how you all came to be. Who is
the Emma and Matt in Xanax and Lickety story?
Emma!
That's me. So our bass player who isn't here, Matt, I love telling this story because, well, you'll see. Me and Matt were taking a Xenakis and Lickety theory class at New England Conservatory where we almost all of us met. And we heard, oh gosh, I always forget what the piece is called. Which piece is it? Someone help me.
It was the string piece, right?
Ramifications. We heard ramifications, and me and Matt were like, whoa, why haven't we heard this before? Why has nobody ever played this? How can we play this? And I mean, this was Lickety, so it's not even close to what we're actually playing right now. And this was during our third year of college at NEC, and we were like, where's this been? Like, so I think at the end of that year, we kind of just started grabbing people and talking to Tyler and Robbie and Alex and just talking about how we could make something, make a place for us to be able to perform music that we wanted to play at our school, which didn't completely exist without a lot of our own effort to do extra things. And yeah, so that was the piece that started it, was listening to Ramifications.
That's fantastic. It's funny hearing people when you ask them about how they got into new music, because it's such a niche thing, you know, and there's always like one piece that they heard. For me, it was Threnody, like a lot of people. And it was more like one of those things where I heard it and I was like, what the hell is this? You know, like, but also why would someone, how does someone come to the point where they're writing this, you know? in like an analytical sort of way. But so that's amazing to hear with Liggity, and I'm not surprised to hear that either, because Liggity is like, whoo, beautiful man, beautiful music. Was there anyone in the ensemble who you had to kind of twist their arm a little bit to try to get them to be a part of it?
Nah,
We all kind of
we're on
latched
the same
on.
page. Yeah.
Well, it was interesting. So Emma and Matt were outside a restaurant here in Boston called Ginger Exchange after a concert I had sung my sophomore year. And they were talking, they go, hey, if we started a new music ensemble, would you join? And I was like, what kind of question is this? Yes, of course. And thinking nothing of it, thinking like, oh yeah, that'll be cool when that happens. And then, 6 months later, we had our first concert, and I was like, oh, they weren't kidding. Oh God.
It's like snuck up on you there. Yeah, that's amazing. Right there is another example too, like that forthrightedness. I don't even know if that's a freaking word, honestly, but to just like come out and be like, hey, you want to join this thing with us, is a great example of what you did with this podcast. So if we can kind of like pivot forward a little bit, or no, let's kind of keep this past. So when exactly did this start? When did your ensemble start? Like what year and everything?
Gardy?
2019.
Yeah, I mean, we're getting kind of into semantics here, but I mean, most of us played, fittingly enough, Liggity, like spring 2018. No, 2019. I'm sorry, spring 2019. You're right. We did Nouvelle Aventure with pretty much the most of us, and then like a few other people who were into it. And that was kind of our first experience putting something kind of crazy together. We weren't like as an ensemble yet by name, but we enjoyed that experience so much. So this is kind of after Matt and Emma's class, and then gathering people who were interested, and we kind of did this. And then over the summer of 2019, we were kind of like, yeah, why don't we, see if we can actually form something here and do some stuff on our own. And then we came back fall semester 2019 and started planning some stuff out, and got the name and all of that stuff going. And we ended up putting on our first actual concert as Alinéa on October 2019, which was the George Crumb at 90 concert. It was around the time of his 90th birthday. We put together that as our first concert as an ensemble. We found Crumb to be kind of an approachable place to start, not the weirdest stuff, but someone who we can kind of be like, hey, we're a new music ensemble, and we're gonna get weirder, but like, here's Crumb to start off with if you want to hear some and get our name out there a little bit. And it was cool. I mean, it was just such an exhilarating experience for us to have planned this and then to see it realized. I mean, because it was something we had been thinking about at that point for half a year or more. And then when we did this concert and we had people come to it and we had like a whole, thing, it felt like a real concert. We were like, this is crazy. We could do this. And then we just kept doing it from there.
That's fantastic. So was that was the first concert where you were officially known as Alinéa? Was that, you had one or two performances before then?
Yeah, we had, all of us knew each other somehow when this got started. I had known Jack from the Summer Institute for Contemporary Performance Practice the summer before, and Robbie and I had known each other from freshman year and had written for each other and sung each other's work. And I sung his work, he played mine. Alex and I had done a Crumb piece the fall before. So we all had sort of like dabbled with each other in some way, in duos and trios, whatever. And so when it came time to like set a roster, we just pulled from the people we knew were already involved in what we were doing.
Right. Gotcha. So then, what sort of, with the first concert you did as Alinéa, what sort of planning had to go into place? I mean, from what it sounds like, it sounds like you 100% put it all together yourself, right? Could you get into that a little bit?
Yeah, I think first you have to talk about what new music looked like at NAC. It existed, and actually with some really strong people involved, but there were sort of three disparate camps who were all doing their own thing in their own series at different times, and nobody talked to anybody else. And like, if you knew those people, you could get into doing new music at NAC, but you had to know them by name, and they had to know that you were a good player and trust you. And there's like a whole like 2-3 year building process to be able to start to play new music in any real semblance of the form at NEC. And so our first concert, we realized just how many bureaucratic hoops had to be jumped to get a concert hall, to get equipment, to get any amount of lighting. It's like these were all steps that we didn't process. We had to go through the school for. And so it was, email after email after email of like, hey, like, let's meet with the dean. Hey, let's meet with the provost. Like, let's talk about the things that we need here, because we didn't realize just how much crap we're going to need on stage for this thing.
It's a lot of emailing, and it's a lot of, who each of us from our own different areas of the things that we were doing at NEC and the people that we had been involved with before were able to have some sort of contact that was very helpful for us. So when we needed a hall, people who had worked with like the room scheduling people and had the contact with the theory department to be able to reserve the room for a performance, and then getting the instruments, the instrument librarian and all of these things. So everybody brought a different piece to the puzzle. And that's kind of the thing that it's like a theme for us, is that, in the organization of the ensemble itself and the various roles that we do, in addition to the management stuff, and then, putting a concert together, everybody brings something else to the table as well. So it was just a really big, collaborative effort in that as well. It was a lot. It was a lot.
Yeah, it sounds like a lot. Yeah. I remember in grad school, there was a lot of trying to put things together where, like what you're saying, when there were more people involved, it often was a little bit more of a challenge, So to kind of hear that you were able to like pull together your resources and your skill sets as individuals, that takes a lot sometimes. So then that makes me think too, with your specific roles within the ensemble, is how did you figure out who should do what, and where you would best fit, or was it just like, yeah, I'll do this, whatever?
Emma, do you want to talk about that? Emma knows this part really well.
Oh, I don't know if I know this part really well. I just think it's pretty obvious what all of our roles are, just given who we are. I don't think it was like, oh, should I do this or should you do this? It was like, okay, I'll do the scheduling because I know those people and I'm happy to do it. So I don't think it was super complicated. I think it gets more complicated when everyone's really busy during school. And another thing to consider is, like, even though we were kind of doing our own thing within our school, we did have the support of a lot of people at NEC, which was really amazing. And to be able to use their halls and stuff was really amazing. And we were kind of approaching this new phase of performing elsewhere and doing things not affiliated with the school right before the pandemic happened. So that will be next on our list, because currently only 2 of us are even allowed in the school at all. So we really can't do anything there. So that's kind of, we did have a lot of support there, which was really nice. Even though we had to jump through so many hoops, it was still there for us to use.
Yeah, I see what you're saying with that. There's always those hoops when it comes to an institution or some organizations, but definitely colleges and stuff. So here's a question I have with this is when you assumed the roles that you had, like whether it was grant writer or whatever, what was, and if we can kind of do like a round table sort of thing on this, what was a barrier that you hit within your role that was either unexpected, or you were like, oh man, I don't know how to solve this problem? You know what I'm saying?
Right. We sort of fell into roles based on natural strengths, right? It was, so we gave a talk at Sydney Conservatorium over Zoom in like September for these limbs comp class, because they wanted to know, how do you run an ensemble? And our honest answer was, nobody runs it, right? We just sort of all do the work and share the work based on what we do best. But I think in that, we've all hit snags, at least I know for me, I have, like trying to do work that somebody else is better at. Like every time I try and schedule something, it's never good. Like I'm awful at calendars. It's just not my strong suit. And so like I know better than to leave that to me. I know to give that to somebody like Robbie or Emma, who like know their calendars inside and out and can get people to respond. So for me, it was like, knowing where I was overstepping a boundary of what I was good at and saying, you know what, I will just do the thing that I do best. And I'm just going to do that because that's enough.
That's a great response, by the way. I'm gonna kind of like go from how I see you on my screen, but Emma, what was your sort of barrier, or like what reflections do you have on that?
I think this is actually a positive thing with our barriers. I think the thing that is really helpful is at different times we're all busy with different things, and if Tyler needed to schedule something, he would do it. It wasn't, I mean, he would delegate it, but it wasn't like, okay, if I said that, I have all this other stuff going on, but we really need to plan a rehearsal, can you please do it, Tyler? He would do it. So we would all just kind of pick up the slack when needed. And we still do that, I think, pretty successfully, take turns picking up the slack when the other people are more or less busy with other things. Because as much as we would love this to be like our primary focus, a lot of us are still in school and have other gigs and trying to make a living and stuff like that. So, it have to just kind of roll with whatever's going on in everyone's lives.
Yeah, I love the balance that you're presenting there, with how it's like everyone just does their part as much as needed, and we'll pass it on to whoever, like you said, like delegating and stuff like that. Yeah, what a democratic ensemble you are. It's fantastic. Alex, what is your thoughts on this?
Yeah, I was going to talk a little bit about what Emma was saying too, just how we had things that were happening, because like looking through the history of our ensemble, we've existed in different forms in vastly different times. So when we were all together in the same place putting on live concerts, it's one thing where we have the connections that we have at NEC, and we can reach out to those people that we know in order to get things done. And then we went kind of virtual, and we were doing the podcast and stuff over the summer, and that was totally different, where some people who were doing different roles were, those roles weren't necessarily needed in the summer when we were doing something totally different. And it's kind of now, when we're all in different places, some of us still in school, some of us not, some of us online, and none of us in the same place really, then it's another totally different thing. So being able to have that flexibility to adjust as needed has been really helpful. But I mean, at least for me, one of the things that's changed with some of my roles is I was kind of doing like instrument stuff just because I'm the percussionist. That's kind of the vibe. And when we were looking forward to performing at venues outside of school or renting other places or things like that, that just kind of changes a lot of things about how we get what we need to be at the places that we're going. And, that would have been a big challenge, and it will be when we eventually get there. But just from my world is how that's kind of evolved.
Gotcha. Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. Of course, with the percussion player, you're the instrument guy. So I think we all know how that works pretty well.
It's in the job description.
Yeah, it's in the job description. Robbie, what are your thoughts?
Yeah, I'd like to put emphasis on what you said about a democratic role and the flexibility that each of us have. For example, this is just like jogging back my memory further in the concert series that we put on pre-pandemic. We would do something like, hey, for this concert, for this piece, can you be the one taking the lead for scheduling rehearsals? Like, for example, for the Rebecca Saunders piece, I was leading the coordinating rehearsals with the conductor and the rest of the ensemble that we had in that instrumentation, and then leading that, and then for other pieces we had other people leading that, and it was just all like being fair to everybody else in the ensemble to make sure no one's being overworked, no one's doing too much that they're not asked, that they weren't supposed to be doing. And that even applies over the summer too, I'd say, like especially for once we were editing all the videos, like for example, Alex was doing a lot of the iMovie, just assembling of everything, which is a really, really heavy job with a lot of work to handle. But then once he started school, and then there was suddenly much less time available to him, then I took over some of the role for him. And it's
Robbie saved my life.
Yeah. So, so then while I didn't start school yet, when he did, so it was more I took on heavier lead since he's been doing so much of the work over the summer. I took on more of the video editing lead, and then I helped, and I kind of adopted like playing with the website after, like, for example, Tyler had assembled the website first, and now I updated it as we went on with the summer. So it's all about like just communicating between each other and being open to wearing a lot of hats, I guess.
I'm getting the sense that Alinéa is an ensemble that knows how to solve problems.
Well, it starts with one of us texting in all caps in the group chat, like, ah! And then inevitably the problem gets solved.
That's fantastic. I think I'm gonna have to contact you if there's a leaky drain in my apartment or something. I'm gonna be like, I'm calling Alinéa because they'll figure it out. Jack, what are your thoughts on that, man?
Yeah, so I'm the guy that repairs the leaky drains in the ONS now.
Fantastic. There he is.
No, so I'm kind of the odd man out because I joined Alinéa in the summer. So I had played with them pre-pandemic, and then I was kind of asked to join later. So I haven't had a sort of space to fill those roles, but I'm looking forward to it soon. Right now, my role is kind of being the pianist that stays around. So yeah, I think I'm doing my best at that.
That's an important thing right there. I mean, piano, especially, I know there's a good amount of pianists who are apprehensive about inside piano techniques.
Yeah. I'm not apprehensive. I'm fine with destroying a piano, but I don't know. It's... Yeah, I also am not from NEC. The neighboring school at Boston Conservatory. So yeah, I have no problem with destroying their pianos. So yeah.
Is there a healthy rivalry going on here?
Is there a rivalry?
No.
There's an imagined one at BOCO. Everyone at BOCO thinks everyone
Really?
at NEC's pretend. Yeah.
Emma, you made a face right there. You I think there's something going on.
No, I was just laughing.
Yeah, well, that's interesting. Tell people at BOCO that they're loved too. They don't need to be all worked up.
Yeah, and I've been spreading the peace message.
There you go. Yeah. So,
Okay, but may I interrupt for saying that I've definitely utilized BOCO violinists to collaborate on a new music piece just over the summer because we couldn't find a single NEC violinist to be willing to play new music with us. So I'd just like to make that super clear that BOCO wins on willingness to play new music. A long shot, to be honest.
Yeah, we have our own department there in contemporary music that I'm in. So it was really cool getting to see both sides and how the different approach at NEC and whatnot.
It's worth mentioning. The idea has actually been floated since our time at NEC about starting a master's in new music at NEC. They're thinking about founding that program. I think they saw enough interest in the student body. I don't want to say through us, but we were just sort of the most verbal, participants in a long string of students who were like, hey, I want to do this. Why can't I do this? So the idea has been floated post-pandemic of starting that at NEC.
Yeah, well, I have no doubt that your ensemble was a part of a kind of forwarding that conversation a little bit more, whether or not it's happening or whatever. But like the fact that the thing that made me so interested in your ensemble is how you just gracefully handled the quarantine with your podcast. Not only how you handled it, but you got like the top composers of the world on your podcast. Which was like, oh my God, Chaya Czernowin, Bea Fura, Rebecca Saunders, Ashley Fear. Like I was like, who are these people? Like,
How do you say no to these faces? I mean,
well, exactly. But like I said, you're an ensemble that knows how to solve problems. You saw a problem, you're like, well, let's do something with it. So let's talk about that. I'm curious. So clearly, like I said, you handled it gracefully. Initially, when the quarantine hit, what was the like? Was there an oh shit moment? we're screwed, or like, you know, like tell me a little bit about that.
We had 3 performances canceled, including heading down to New York. We were scheduled to play the Domena Center, and that got axed, as well as our final season concert at NEC, and then like a few other things. So yeah, definitely when everything went down, we were like, oh, this isn't great.
Which had a premiere from Chaya also that we didn't get to do, but hopefully we'll do in the future.
Well, yeah, that I have no doubt that'll happen. Was that written for your ensemble?
No, that was a piece written for the Experimental Studio Freiburg, but it matched our ensemble close enough that we were like, hey, it's just been done and nobody in the States has done it. Y'all want to premiere a Chaya piece?
Mm-hmm.
And so all we did was send an email to her in Studio Freiburg, say, hey, we want to do it. And the piece, in theory, the reason we picked Domena was because Domena has speakers built into the walls of the hall. The piece takes 8 surround sound electronic channels and 2 from above the hall facing down in the audience. And then our sound is being pumped through the speakers alongside the electronics, and it's all being manipulated from the board in the center of the room. So it was like a piece we could do at Domena and have it really come off well. And we didn't get to see that through. And so there were 2 weeks we all went home, or we were in our apartments and just sitting there. We were like, so let's start planning the next season. Like, let's start thinking about pieces we're going to do in the fall. And at the same time, we were like, it's not going to happen.
Yeah.
I mean, we did actually, we have a plan. Like we spent a good while going back and forth, doing some listening, brainstorming, workshopping, just listening to music and finding pieces we wanted to play. And we crafted a season, because at this point it was still early March. You know, we didn't really know how the rest of the summer or the fall would pan out. We didn't know how long this thing would be lasting. So we were operating under the assumption we'd be able to play music together in the fall. And so we had a plan. And then as we kind of looked at that plan and then looked at how things were progressing and started to get, second thoughts. And that's when we started to pivot towards something else.
And honestly, that's something that we have not ever had time to do, was to like actually listen to some pieces together and just bring some new ideas to the table, because we're all so busy. So it was definitely information that will be used in the future from this large list that we compiled.
Sure. Yeah. Was that was it like a listening party via Zoom, or?
It became that. It started as like okay, put every composer and piece you've ever wanted to play or know in a Google Doc. And then it became a Google Sheets, because we had to like start organizing it by something. And then it was like, okay, everybody go listen to 6 pieces that you didn't put and come back and we'll talk about it. And then go listen to 6 pieces you put and we'll come back and talk about it. And that was 2 weeks of like bi-nightly or tri-nightly meetings of us just talking about music, which was kind of how we got to everything with the kitchen sink, because we were just sitting and talking about the music we loved. And we were like, this is fun as it is.
That's cool. I like that. I like how it grew out of something that like it wasn't even entirely planned for that to happen, And I think that's how a lot of stuff sort of miraculously come to be, like some invention or something. Like, I don't know, this is how I invented the hammer. I saw a thing and I wanted to put it through a hole, but it wasn't, I don't know. I can't even make it up on the spot. But I don't know. You made the hammer and you put that thing through the hole.
That's one of the things that really we're really about with that podcast was we'd been talking about music as performers for so long, and it was a time when everybody, we are now because of the work that we do, but even more so then, we were all just stuck to our computers, desperate to talk to somebody. And we thought, if we're feeling like this as college-age kids, I'm sure adult composers feel the same way, right? And I had done enough in my own personal work, just sort of reaching out to composers, be like, hey, I really like your music. Can I ask you a question about this? Or like, why did you write this piece? I'm just curious. I had a question. And so I'd done it a little bit before, and I was like, they're pretty responsive. Let's try it. They have to be bored, right? And turns out they were. Because they said yes to a bunch of 20-somethings who said, hey, you have good music. Come tell us about it.
Well, that's the thing that I love about how you did this was the entire world was in lockdown, basically. So you knew they were home. It's not like they're traveling the world to like do performances or whatever at that point. So, it's like, hey, I got you. Like, you kind of have to say yes.
Right. Although, we had an interview with Rebecca Saunders in late April, early May. And we were supposed to meet her on a Tuesday, or it's on a Monday. And she emails us a couple hours. Hey, sorry, I missed my train from Köln. Can we do tomorrow? And I was like, you're traveling? She's like, yeah, I'm at the studio. And I was like, oh, Germany. Germany must be nice.
Yeah, there's their own little ecosystem, I guess, that they're functioning through. So whose idea was there any one specific person who was like, this is what we need to do, like a literal explicit statement of it for the podcast, that is?
I think Tyler proposed it
Tyler.
initially, right?
Yeah, but I think Matt came up with the name. And it built. It was like let's just talk to people, and then it was like, well, can we write blog posts, and can we make some playlists that go along with it, and how are we going to do this? So it built itself into something.
Yeah, we didn't know what it was going to be at first. Because it very much came organically. Like I think it was Tyler who was saying earlier how we were just listening to a bunch of stuff, and then we were just like, wow, this is cool that we're just like hanging out and talking about music we like. So it kind of started from there, and then it added on with, we should maybe see if they have any solos that we could record along with it, and then the playlist and the blog and everything kind of came up. But I can't remember one moment that was like, we're gonna make a video podcast series. I don't remember kind of when that happened.
Yeah, it's one thing that I what you just mentioned, Alex, about the solo performances and stuff. That was another thing that was like a brilliant add-on to what you were doing. It's like, yeah, here's this podcast where we talk to these composers who write amazing music and ask them about it. And not only that, here's a performance from one of our members of the ensemble performing that piece by that person. What a great resource you provided with that. And so one thought is like Tyler a moment ago, you mentioned, you've had some experience with reaching out to composers and they've been very receptive. I've had the same experience, like when I've reached out to, whoever, and they'd be like, yeah, here you go. Here's the score or something, or, it's sort of an interesting thing in our world. But was there anything when it came to interviewing these composers, maybe in the beginning or something, but where you were like, I guess, uncertain about how you should go about doing this? Or
the first half, but we got into a groove. We started to figure it out. But the first 2 or 3 were terrifying, and it didn't help. I thought it was going to be a good idea because I had worked with Chaya before, and I was like, let's start with Chaya. We can do that. I know her music. I've sung her music. She knows me. And I sat down and I was like, so you write music. Tell us about the bird in your backyard. And that was about as far as we got. And we were trying to do half-hour blogs. We were trying to keep it short. We didn't want to take too much of their time. If you watch the later interviews, Ming Cao was like an hour and a half of talking. And it's like, okay, so these people can talk. But we were trying to keep it short, and we tried to have a plan. And then we realized that they just liked being asked questions about their music. They liked talking about it. It was fun.
Some people talk more than others too. There are some composers who you ask a question and they answer the question and that's it. There are some who you ask the question and then they answer the question in the span of 10 minutes while also telling 23 anecdotes and, bringing up a few other things. So, I mean, we really...
And talking about Lachenmann.
We really had to, we found this out early, is we had to be super flexible. We could come in with a plan, and the way that it was structured kind of I don't remember if we started out this way where we had like one person on point who would do like the most research beforehand and come up with like a game plan, or if that started a little bit in. But the person who would do the prep would come, and we'd discuss a few questions that we all had, and the prep would be there, and then you could have a script of a few questions or however you wanted to prepare it, and then you can go in there and start and see what happens. If you get to everything, then you get to everything. If you don't, then you don't. And it was really kind of, it's conversational, so it's not like you can take control of the conversation and drive it every which way. It's really a flexible thing, and being adaptable, adapt, whatever that word is, was important.
I like that what you said at the end there. Adaptable, is that the word?
I'm rolling with it. It's whatever.
Dude, don't worry. I can assure you that throughout many of these episodes I've done, there's been words that I just like make up, or plenty of brain farts and what have you.
We were doing our Lisa Lim interview, and I said a word. I had been drinking wine before the interview, and then I was drinking wine during the interview. So I'm the one leading the interview. By the end of this interview, I'm like verging on fairly tipsy, and Lisa and I are talking, and I said a word, and I saw all 5 of them go, and Lisa also went, and I just sort of kept moving, and I think she repeated the word, she thought about it, and she was like, okay, and then moved on. I didn't catch it, and then we got on. We finished the interview. We say goodbye, we close the call, and then we immediately open another Zoom meeting, and we start talking about the interview, how to go, what we thought. And they all go, I'm sorry, what word was that? It's like, I don't know, I'm so sorry.
Graphical? Is that a word?
That's what it was, right? It was something really weird like that.
Histographical, because I was thinking of historiography, and I was like, there's got to be a form of that, right? Histographical is what I came up with.
I appreciate that. I want to use that word now. I'll find a way. It's going to happen in this conversation.
There was one word that I kept running into, and it's one of those things. It's like you don't notice it until you hear it, and then you suddenly notice it. And I'm trying to remember what it was. It was I'll think of it, but there was one other word that caught my attention throughout the courses.
I think it's fair to say too that you may have just come upon the name of your first album.
Historiography. Please no. Please don't.
Or the historiographical tour of 2021,
It was hierarchical. Composers love the word hierarchical.
Oh yeah.
You know what else they love? Robbie actually mentioned this by about the 8th or 9th interview. He was like, dude, everybody talks about time. And this was something that like we didn't really anticipate being a common thread, but with the way time was passing during quarantine, and with, of course, music is a temporal art, it ended up being a huge conversation point for the calls, because inevitably the conversation cycled back to, so do you think about time? And the answer turned out to be yeah.
All the time, pun intended. How many composers mentioned Webern?
A good handful. I know Ming mentioned Webern. I'm sure somebody else. I'm sure Beat probably mentioned Webern. Anybody have any other memories?
I'm looking through my notes. I don't.
It would be like it would be generally one composer would have one other composer that they would reference a lot. Lochenmann was the big one. Tinney. Yeah. There are a few big names that composers say, okay, this is their icon.
Who was the most obscure composer that they had mentioned?
There wasn't so much. We had done pretty thorough research into every composer possible to ask that we wanted to ask. What became really obscure was we had started ending the podcast not till later in the cycle, but we started ending it with, so what are you reading? And we got some obscure books. Beat Fur was reading some book on like American economics. We were like, oh, okay. And there were some obscure topics thrown at us. So they read some far out stuff.
That's amazing. I would very much like to hear that conversation. I didn't watch that episode. Is it included in the episode?
Yeah, he mentions it. The other one that brought up probably the topic, the two that brought up subjects most far beyond what we do. You know, we talked to Aaron Cassidy right at the start of the racial reckoning in the States. And so one of the first things he says was, dude, fuck new music. And then we just basically talked about Run the Jewels for the rest of the call, the rap duo. So, and then Do Yoon started her call. We asked her, talking about form and how she gets her form. She's like, recently I've been watching stand-up comedy. I'm getting my form from stand-up comedy. And so those two subjects were it was like, of all the things I thought you were going to say, that wasn't high on my list of things I thought you were going to say.
I appreciate that. I'm a huge fan of stand-up comedy. There's Spectral Quartet in Chicago, string quartet. I think they did an album where the composer, or I can't remember, but like someone wrote a bunch of pieces that they use the cadences and rhythm and pitch contour of stand-up comedians and such. I can't remember who it was though, but
that's awesome.
Yeah. That's all for that.
Oh, there's that that's their album Serious Business, right? Is it?
I don't.
Sky Mackley and David Reminick and Chris Fisher Lockhead?
Sounds like some funny business to me.
Is that what's the one they just got nominated for the Grammy?
Oh lordy! Anybody know Grammy Spectral Quartet?
Yeah. Tyler's the search engine operator right now.
What? Oh, helpful. They're a nominated artist. Thank you. I did figure that one out on my own.
Is Do Yoon writing a piece that, like in a similar way, where she's looking at stand-up comedians, speech patterns and stuff like that?
I think so. I think that's how she's approaching it. She's looking at. There's a female comedian whose name I cannot remember off the top of my head. Just released her Netflix special a couple months ago, and at the beginning, she tells the audience, "Here's what I'm going to do. Here's my form. Here's where the jokes are going to go. Here's what they're going to be about. Just so you know, you're still going to laugh." And so she's using that idea as her form.
A lot of it was around form, just the way the comedians set up jokes and allow for time for audience response and things like that, about how they're and the way that they go around and they test out material, and you need to, whereas the composer writes something and then it's performed. The comedian writes some things, tests it out, makes alterations and all these things before the final product, which is different every show, of course, but if you get recorded for Netflix or whatever, that's like one thing. So it was just kind of feeling out what works and what doesn't as kind of an important thing to keep in mind as a composer, as opposed to just like writing and then that's it,
Yeah, I think in many cases it also depends on the composer, because some composers will retreat to their corners and just write the piece, and others will have to be really engaged with the performer throughout the process and try it out. And then did Pierre Boulez ever really finish any of his pieces? He did so many revisions. Or Bruckner,
Right. Pierre, taking the same material from a piece 20 years ago and saying, yeah, well, not quite what I wanted to do. So I'm going to write a new piece, but it's going to be the same material. Pierre. We don't need a second and third réponse.
Yeah. I think that comes with being a creative person, even as a performer, when you perform a piece again later in your career, why are you performing it again? Not to say you shouldn't, but.
Right. We've talked about that. There are a couple pieces. Alex actually just texted me the other day. He had watched our performance of the George Crumb piece that we did three times. We performed it 3 times. By the third round of rehearsals, we were like, dude, this is just fun now. This is just second nature. And I think that is, branching out from just the sort of lockdown series. What I think I've learned most with this band of misfits is how music is embodied in performance, right? There's a way that I watch Emma play and watch her physicality and know what that sounds like without her having to touch the hair to the bow, the hair to the string. That's how a violin works. Right? Like I don't need to know what instrument Alex is playing to know what kind of sound he's creating, right? There is an embodiment, there's an active physical engagement in the music that I think drew all of us together. That's become really important to how we perform, particularly as young people. And that's been a really big part of our development, is saying, this is young music and we're young performers with the energy to actually take this and build it into our bodies in a way that is both physical and effective, and also expressive. You know, we did the Chirino Cuidado de Estrada almost a year ago today, December 3rd,
Are you
2019.
kidding me?
A year
Is
ago
it the
today.
third?
It
My
is December
God.
3rd.
Oh my God! Happy anniversary!
Thank you. It would have been right now. We would have been prepping to go on stage. It's a 45-minute piece, right? But everybody learned every damn second of it. And then, you know, you're on stage for 45 minutes together, and there are moments where I know I can trust my flute player. I know she's going to make this gesture right here because I know her as a performer, and that will give me the momentum to take this line somewhere, which Robbie will pick up later in the bar, right? Like there's sort of that, the same way we hand off responsibilities and tasks and details in the running of the ensemble happens. It's learned from within the musical environment. And that I think has been a big push for us in learning each other as musicians, is seeing that in both the professional and the musical realm of what we do.
That's fantastic.
It's important that we're all friends.
Oh, sure.
And we're all just really willing to just do things. I think that's a big part of it. Also, we're just all passionate about it. And like, it's just really rare to find like a group that doesn't have like one person who's not quite putting in the effort, or like that just happens more commonly than everyone really pulling their weight. And yeah, I feel like even before our first official concert together, we all really trusted each other to pick up slack like that, just like we do in our planning and stuff.
Yeah, really trusting each other. That's like exactly what Tyler said right there. Clearly that resonates throughout your entire ensemble, that trust. And kind of going back earlier in the conversation when you were talking about delegating and like picking up the slack of someone else and being flexible and stuff, that sounds a lot like, you know, stemming out from trusting one another to be able to fill this role when it needs to be filled and do this thing and you know, take one for the team if you have to, right? It's a weird saying.
Very much so. Very much so. It's like, who's like, I'm willing to sacrifice for this group. I mean, we all know we're not going to be paid by this group for a while, right? None of us are making money off of anything we do. But if you're listening and you'd like to give us money, our Venmo is Alinéa.Ensemble. Kidding, we don't have a Venmo. We probably should. But look, we don't do it because we're making money or because we want to build a business out of this ensemble, right? We just do it because the act of playing together and of sharing that space and embodying that time as a unit is the privilege of our music making.
Ooh, that was beautiful. I like that. There we go. That's like the cherry on the cake. Is that the saying? Is that how you say that? Cherry on the cake? That sounds wrong.
Icing on the cake.
Icing on the cake. God, I'm a jackass.
English is just a bad language. Don't worry about it. But you know, talking about that trust in performance. God, there was our first concert. We finished the concert with Songs Joined Refrains of Death by Crumb, which like is 100 and some odd a percussion piece set up, and it's a half hour, and it's all in Lorca Spanish. And I was like, I'm gonna do it memorized, and everyone was like, you probably shouldn't. And I was like, no, I'm gonna do it memorized. And they're like, no, you probably shouldn't. And so I did, but it was like down to the wire. And I think that was the thing that, like, for me, like I'm just speaking on my part, like the fact that Alex and Matt were like, yeah, go for it. We'll follow you. We trust you. Like, you want to cue a downbeat, like just whatever you got to do. We trust you. That was the first time I'd ever experienced that in an ensemble of like we all hold each other right in the palms of our hands and say, I know where you're going with this and I will follow you. Like, let's do it together. That's been cool.
So who else in the ensemble memorized the piece?
Tyler. He's crazy.
Yeah, that's not, you know.
You know, I have the privilege of words though, right? Like words and associations help a good deal. And you know, it's crumb. It's just me screaming Spanish to the audience for like a half hour.
It's also all in D major, if you think about it.
It's a manageable key. That's a manageable key right there.
It's no C major, but you know.
Well, you can't compare much to C major. It's just shall we say it's at the top of the hierarchy?
Yeah, it's pretty. It's good hierarchy. I mean, it's in C, not in D. I mean, geez.
Ooh, Terry Riley.
Yeah,
The man.
Indy's the remix that I don't think it's appropriate for this podcast. Actually.
Oh man, yeah, that's a whole other. Well, I don't know. This is the Making Noise podcast, man. Like we can get rowdy. We can get rowdy. I think the Bart Simpson painting behind you, Jack, is a good representation of that.
Oh, thank you. It's an original.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
Can we get a view of it?
Yeah.
Am I imposing too much here?
No. I've got my autograph on it and everything.
Yeah. That's fantastic. I love it.
Jack is like quietly the funniest person in the ensemble. Jack will just like say or do shit during meetings, during rehearsals, and you're like, Jack, what are you doing? It's great.
Gotta be subtle about it.
Right.
It's unassuming until it happens. And you're like, oh.
That's the best kind. It's unexpected, and then it happens, and you're there. You can't do anything about it.
That was also interesting. It was, you know, as we've seen each other like this for the last 9 months. This is how we've communicated. We haven't really seen each other in person. And it's also, you know, we've gotten to know each other's Zoom personalities. It's also been interesting to like decipher the personalities of composers through how they handle Zoom. Like, Do-Yoon hopped on a call with like chaos in her eyes and a virtual background ready to go, and she was like, and like started talking from the down, like downbeat was given, and she was like, okay, let's joke, let's have fun, and she was laughing, and she was like her personality was there across Zoom, and like others we get on and they're like, how can you see me? And you're like, yeah, we got it, we're good. This is really cool to like learn the composer's personality is mediated by this. That was so much of what we wanted to create, was not just, you know, talking to composers, but how do you collaborate? How do you like still have an artistic collaboration in some way, even if it's just dialogue based, through a virtual medium? And then when you're creating music for that virtual medium, how do you use the virtual medium as a means of composition, a tool for experience, and not just, okay, we're playing a piece that should be done live, but you know, we're also gonna just do it here so you guys can hear it, but where this becomes a part of the art. So that was what we were thinking about.
I like that process right there, and it's I mean, it's unavoidable right now. There's definitely so much being created in this sort of format. I know for me, it's been like, God damn, what do I do with this? You know, like trying to figure it out, and still kind of stuck in the old model, and pivoting out of that. But like I said earlier, like you all have handled this gracefully as an ensemble, nonetheless, you know, like a whole group of people. But so that's one question I've had, or I've thought is, your ensemble, it's a nine people.
It's core 6 with 3 who float, as you know, they don't want any of the responsibilities of organization, but they play with us as consistent as they can.
Right. Okay. So could you riddle off just the core 6 members and instruments, and then what the other 3, you know, who rotate?
Well, yeah. So do you want to say it? It's just Tyler is going to be our baritone. He does all the fun, wild vocal stuff we've seen in Crumb, that we've seen in Sharino. I play the cello. Jack is our pianist. Alex is our percussionist. Emma is our violinist, and Matthew, who's not here with us, is our bassist. And then our core, and then our non-core that we played with throughout the season have been Alexis, who plays the clarinet. He's really great. We've got Xiaoyu, who is our flutist.
is
At,
is there another person? Was that three?
And then Cassandra.
Oh, yeah,
and
then
we're managing.
Yes.
Right, there's a photo on your site of her with the bassoon.
Yeah, it's interesting. One of her best friends, Jensen, actually plays bassoon with us pretty frequently. And she does the management side of things.
She helps keep us together.
Yeah, that was one of the things that I loved when I watched your podcast with or the introduction episode when you talk about like what you're all doing and stuff. And she's like, "Yeah, I'm the manager," and I was like, "Oh hell yeah, that's a great idea."
Her management skills are mostly just being like, "Hey, can you put this in a Google Doc so you all know what the heck you're talking about?" I'm like, "Yes, Cassandra, we can do that." Or like, "Hey, can you actually schedule that for real?" Like, "Yeah, thank you, Cassandra." So she's just sort of like the mom over in the corner who's like, whipping us into shape every once in a while when we need it. She's great.
It's great to have that. You'll have to get her a little name tag like Alinéa Mom or something, or like, when you go out to dinner as a group, she'll order everyone's food for them. Yeah, that's cool though. Was that planned? Like did you decide like we need a manager, or was it something like, did she kind of come to you and be like, "Hey, I'd like to be your manager"?
It's more the latter, right?
It was yeah. Because she was interested in gaining like working with a group or something like that, to have the like another kind of resume thing. It's a good experience to have for sure. And we're all good friends with her. And so it was a match that was kind of very fitting and very needed at the time, because this she came along kind of around the January concert that we did, when things were getting busy, because we were also looking forward to the concert that eventually got canceled. But we had to deal with personnel for that, plus going to play in New York and all of these other things, and scheduling rehearsals for multiple pieces. So back when we were kind of juggling a lot more on our plate, it was really helpful for her to come along and handle a lot of the miscellaneous things for that one. So we definitely were kind of at a point where, as this semester got busier, we as the core had other things going on, and it was kind of a stretch to really keep things locked down when we had a bunch of other stuff going on. So she was really helpful for kind of lightening the load on each of us and helping us figure out what the plan was.
Yeah, and we also really appreciated her role evolving as the summer hit, because she turned into a lot of helping us post the things to social media to actually get it out there, while we were focusing on the interview stuff and handling that. So she's been really flexible and doing whatever is needed based on the time and the venue.
Yeah, that's important. I can definitely see the necessity for having someone who can take care of the I guess administrative aspects of the ensemble, so that you can essentially do your jobs as performers. How important and how amazing it is to have that. That's so great. I know for me personally, when I'm in a position where I can hire an assistant, I'm going to hire an assistant, because I there's some things where obviously I'll do whatever I have to do, but sooner or later it's like, all right, I want to compose, I want to talk to people, you take care of this other stuff for me, I'll pay you, when that day comes, sooner or later, hopefully sooner.
Yeah, and what's nice is that Cass is one of Cass. I've never called her Cass. Cassandra, I don't know. Cassandra's one of our friends too, right? So she's just as close in terms of hangouts and vibes. So it's not like this other extra person that we have to be like, okay, we're professional selves with her and we're an ensemble together. We're just ourselves all the time with everybody who's involved. It's been cool.
That's great. Yeah, totally. Having that strong camaraderie.
So you want to hear a fun story about this ensemble?
Please.
When we were first doing one of our first concerts together as a real group with multiple of us in the same piece, when we did the Ligety, April of 2019, we were supposed to do it on one concert in Jordan Hall, and the conductor, Stratis Menakakis, who teaches composition here at NAC, who is fabulous and a wonderful music advocate, he was all set to go, and then Steve Drury, one of the other new music guys at the school, was like, "Hey, do you want to do it on my concert like a week and a half later?" So I emailed Stratis. I was like, "Hey, Steve wants us to do the piece again." And Stratis emailed back like a selection of words that have become some like Zoom passwords, have become like mottos for the ensemble. I know I shouldn't have said that out loud.
Don't tell our
Now we have to change it.
Stop.
Now we have to change it.
Stratis emailed back with a wonderful period at the end and nothing else in the body of the email. Fuck yeah, anything for Steve. And so, you don't know Steve Drury, so that's, the joke falls on its face there, but just like that is, yes, Jack knows Steve very well. Jack is a student of Steve. But anyway, that's just your fun little multi-word phrase that describes Alinéa as fuck yeah, anything for Steve.
That's great. Is that so? Steve Drury. This name sounds really familiar. Who is Steve Drury? Jack.
He's a legend. I mean, he's a pianist. He's a conductor. But worked with Cage, worked with Shevsky, worked with Wolf. He's kind of like. Yeah, it's funny because one of my introductions to new music was listening to this this disc of John Cage, early piano stuff, like the sort of the cheesy, In a Landscape, Dream, the really early, beautiful sort of modal stuff. And it was Steve playing it, and I didn't know this when I was like 12, and now I'm a student of him. But yeah, personally, he's a character.
That's an understatement.
What is something? What is an interesting experience with Steve that you've had?
Oh God! So this was a good one. So this summer, I overcoming an injury right now, and I was calling Steve about it, and he was like, take a week off. I was learning Schoenberg Opus 11, number 3. And he was like, "Oh, take a week off that." And then I took like 3 days. I'm like, "Oh, I'm gonna start working on it again." And I'm practicing for 5 minutes. Then I get a text from him. "Naughty boy, I told you not to practice that." And it's like, what? Because he lives in another part of Boston. I'm like, well, how does he know? So yeah, it turns out his friend was walking by, heard me through the window, recorded it, sent it to him, and then he was like, there's only one person in Boston learning Schoenberg Opus 11 number 3 right now, and just had to text me about it. But it was like, I was like, I'm boarding up my windows for the next. I'm not practicing in earshot of anyone ever again.
That is incredible. He's everywhere. Literally everywhere.
Steve and I used to go to the same coffee shop in the morning, and he would usually come in like 5 or 10 minutes after I get there at 6. He'd get there at 6:10, and he walked in one morning, and he from across the the quiet coffee shop in the morning, he goes, "Boke, do you improvise?" And I was like, "Not yet." He was like, "Okay, good, you're going to." Picked up his coffee and walked out, and I was like, "Cool, great." So Steve will just accost you at any moment, and you never have any idea when it's going to happen. It's good. It's good.
I have to say I would love to hear a patron of that coffee shop who's a non-musician. I would like to hear their reflection on that conversation. Just some guy being like, "Do you improvise? Good, you're going to."
There's a lot of people I wish could just give their unfettered opinion on meeting Steve Drury for the first time. I want to know what that's like.
Should that be the name of this episode?
What's it like? No, don't give him more credit.
Don't boost his ego.
Right. Nobody said this to him.
Now I'm tempted to only send it to him. Don't worry, I won't. I don't even know the guy. Yeah, that's an interesting experience right there, and it makes sense too. The dude was rocking with like John Cage, Wolf, Shevsky. Like those are some people who were doing all the wild stuff. They were doing like the most out there things that even people today are mad about.
In a sweet moment of vulnerability, he once asked me in an email. He said, when you have time, send me a list of composers you all listen to, because I don't want to fall behind the times. And what's the important point to draw back here to all of us is that what started off as us just playing living composers has become a thing. Like, it wasn't intentional. It wasn't like we didn't say, okay, we're not playing people who are dead. It just started off that way. And we've just kept going. And I'm sure we've often joked that one day we'll do like a classical masters concert, and we'll do Ligeti and Stockhausen, and we'll do Cage, and we'll go back and do the old masters. Because for us, those are the old masters. Those are people who we passed through in our development and said, okay, that's cool music, and now I want to play people who are alive. And so I don't know, it's become a talisman for us. Like, we just carry that fact around. Like, we're all only playing people who are like who we can talk to.
It's so interesting to hear that. Thinking about the fact that like Stockhausen, Barrio, Ligeti, they're not living, right? But you still think of them as contemporary composers, in many ways, because like they're the ones who are still, people are still trying to figure out and whatnot. But I like that. I like that you're viewing it as like, well, these are the masters of what came to where we are today, or how we got to where we are today. And so now we're going to focus on this and just dabble in that area right there. Here's a question. What composer, I want to ask someone specific. Emma, what composer would you want to perform with Alinéa pre-1900? Not perform pre-1900, but what composer from pre-1900 would you perform?
Let me think about that. Does anybody have an answer off the top?
No, this is you. This is first one off the top of your head.
I don't have one. I really don't have one.
I did not expect this kind of question.
Right around the time, like 1602, 1603, 1604, in Venice and Verona, you have a group of Italian composers who are writing what was called the seconda pratica in madrigal writing. And so it's a time when you're looking at.
Okay, I buy that.
It's the first iteration of text painting, but it's also microtonal tunings in old Italian traditions. It's developing of scales beyond, it's like equal temperament is being born, but they're also finding other things. Monteverdi is like redesigning form. Gesualdo is still alive. He's young and he's just killed his wife. So like we're at the peak of when like these composers are like on the brink of something. It's a time when something's about to happen. And they're experimenting with everything.
The reason I had trouble answering this question also is because this ensemble is specifically created for our outlet for new. And like we all play other stuff. And I just played some Haydn and Mozart a couple weeks ago. But that's not for this group. Maybe that'd be cool, Tyler. But that's why I had trouble.
I'd want to do Pythagoras, definitely.
Bro. Was he even a composer?
Yeah.
He was?
Oh. Yeah, he wrote the monochord, yeah.
Yeah, I know he developed a lot with ratios and tuning ratios and stuff like that.
Yeah, no, I'm just being obscure.
That is an interesting. That would be an interesting thing to do, though, is play only using that exact. Like what if you only played the D string at like D4 or the D key on D4 and you just like harmoniced it up. See, there's a word, harmonic. Right?
I'm super into like just intonation stuff, but I play the piano, unfortunately. So.
Jack actually led our interview with Kat Lamb for that reason. Like Jack, when we got Kat to say yes, Jack was like, please let me do it. Please can it be me? So that's been fun. But like we all have our favorite composers we all wanted to talk to, which is just like a cool fan moment.
Yeah. What was Robbie? Who was your composer?
Julian was one of the highlights, which was so fun. Also, Marcus Balter, he was super fun too.
Two awesome people. I studied with Marcos in my undergrad, and I met Duyan a couple times because they're both pals and stuff. So
did you go to Montclair?
Yeah. I went to Montclair. I'm originally from New Jersey. So
when did you graduate?
2015.
Okay, cool.
Yeah, 2015. I had a really obscure college career, so
were you there when they brought the Ash Fury opera to Montclair, or was that after your time?
That was after, but I went to the performance.
Did you? You went and saw Force of Things?
Yeah, awesome. It was literally immersive because it is immersive.
Yes, it is. That massive airplane wire like straight through the room and all those resonators the bit the foot. It's awesome.
Did you get to experience it?
Nah, I've only studied it.
Yeah, I did my master's in Bowling Green, Ohio, and it wasn't the premiere, but they did a performance in Ann Arbor, Michigan. In Ann Arbor, Michigan, where the University of Michigan is like, I don't know, an hour away from where I was. So I went to that performance, and then however many months later, like a year or so later, it was at Montclair. So I drove to Montclair because it's like, that was my alma mater. My mom still lives in New Jersey. So it was cool, like, because it wasn't the same piece at all. Even the whole setup of the stage was different. Yeah, I love her. She writes amazing music. And yeah, it was an insane experience for sure.
I'm actually curious to know what everybody else's favorite composer was. Like, I do want to know, like,
yeah,
what was the one that you were most excited about?
Alex is thinking
of the series.
Like, do you mean our favorite experience speaking with?
Not to pick favorites, of course.
Oh, I love them all.
Who was your least favorite?
Oh, I'm not trying to spread.
Nobody.
We can't say that.
I know your answer.
Stop.
Nobody answer. Nobody say
Definitely no. No, they were all very, very sweet, very, very incredible to talk to. And I mean, I to be fully frank, I haven't heard of some of these composers before we did this. Mm-hmm. So the example, like Tyler is extremely well versed in all of them because he knew how to reach out to them. I didn't know some of them, and so getting to learn about them and speak with them and hear it from them was an amazing learning experience, and just the things that we all learned about music through them in different capacities was incredible. So, I mean, they were all amazing.
Yeah, that's a great response. Do any of you know Alberto Posadas?
Of course, his string quartet is just like unbelievable.
Liturgia Fractal.
Oh my God.
I would love if you get him on the podcast. I'll watch it. I'll be like, every view you have would be me. So
deal.
I just had to throw that out there. Also, if you perform one of his pieces, I'll be at that performance undoubtedly. Yeah, but it was so amazing. I mean, I watched the episode with Rebecca Saunders. I skimmed through the one with Marcos because that was my guy. Evan Johnson, and there was another one. Who was it? I can't remember. Yeah. It's interesting when you get to talk to people who so intimately through their work, and then actually experience them as a person, like celebrities even, especially celebrities, but in a way, composers or performers in our world, it's like these people who we see through a specific lens. What point with these interviews did you have? Was there a point where you're like, holy crap, I can't believe I'm talking to this person, and it just sort of took you over and you couldn't get out of that? Was there ever a point for that with any of you?
Totally.
The moments for me were always like because I was the host. I have the Alinéa account on my Zoom, so I would host these meetings, and like we'd be chit chatting, we'd all be like nervously talking beforehand, and then like Rebecca Saunders has entered your Zoom room, and I was like, no, please don't make me do this. Those moments were always pretty overwhelming.
And also when they're like connecting to the audio, and we're all just like waiting for them to speak and looking at each other.
It was really just like 6 fangirls sitting in a Zoom room, like, hi, so nice to meet you. Hi, this is so cool.
Yeah, I think I would be in the same headspace as that. I just not knowing what to do.
The weird one was Tim Rutherford Johnson, because I had read his book like this. He was the one non-composer of the bunch. He was the musicologist. I had read his book, and I was like, I feel like I know your words so well. And then he got on. I was like, what do I ask you? Like, I've read your book. What more do I want to know? That was a weird one. That was a weird moment.
It was also interesting to see kind of some of the responses that we were getting as we were posting some of these things up, and people were reaching out, people who had just came across it for whatever reason and reached out with something or another. We've made a few different collaborations, and I mean, Tim put us on his blog, which was super cool. And there was even a brief mention from Alex Ross, which was super cool. And, it's just like, wow, how is our little thing kind of spreading out like this? And it's, I don't know, just one of those things, I guess, you never knew it would happen until you did it. And we're really glad we did.
Yeah. Alex, the moment like that was that for me was when we got the score from Richard Barrett, right? When Richard was like, hey, here's the piece I wrote for you. And we were all like, what have we done? Like, what monster have we built?
And Michael Fennessy, when he sends us a thing and we're like emailing back and forth about how we're going to put it together. And we're like, we're workshopping with Michael Fennessy right now. It's like casual.
Did that come about from the podcast, or was there anything beforehand?
I knew Michael beforehand. Emma and I had played one of his pieces together with him there the summer before, and so we knew Michael in that way. But both Michael and Richard said, I don't want you to play a piece of mine. I want to write something new for this. I want an excuse to be collaborating. And so what were we going to say? No. It was awesome.
Yeah, it's like no, man, like we got other things we got to do.
Like I have anything else to look forward to right now.
That's funny. Oh yeah, what a great opportunity right there. So then, from looking to the future, do you think you're going to continue the podcast? Like I mean, well, actually, let me back that up. You're all in Boston, right? No. Clearly, I don't know anything.
Yeah. Do we want to do the go around saying of what we're doing?
Yeah, if you would.
Jack.
Yeah, no, I'm in Boston. I'm finishing up my master's.
That's at NEC, right?
No, I'm at Boston Conservatory.
That's it, Boston. Yes, you said that earlier.
Just down the street.
The stronger of the two, right?
That's not the reputation for it, no.
Okay. Tyler had a face like, bro, are you serious right now?
No, we my school went bankrupt in 2015 and got bought by Berkeley.
Gotcha.
Yeah.
I'm just messing around, by the way. Just having fun. Robbie, where are you located, man?
Yeah, also Boston. I go to NEC.
Gotcha. The stronger of the two.
Jesus. We don't need to be promulgating this.
You're gonna start some shit.
You should if it means anything, my girlfriend's always mad at me, so because this is exactly what I do.
Can we meet your girlfriend?
You want to meet her?
We'll have a lot in common.
You probably will. Yeah. I'll bring her on. Yeah. Alex, where are you from?
I'm from Boston. I finished up my undergrad at NEC, and I'm at Rice in Houston currently.
Okay. Yeah. Well, you're probably having a decent experience with weather down there, man, right?
Not too bad. Yeah. I mean, I'm from Boston, and I've lived there my whole life. And it is currently 52 degrees outside, and this is probably the coldest it's been.
How crazy is that being from the Northwest, and now you're in this area where it's Christmas time.
Yep.
You're like chilling in like a shirt, like a t-shirt, you know?
I know, it's so weird. It's awesome though. I mean, I people around here are sick of it and they're like ready for it to be cold and they like go into like the winter or whatever, but nah, I'm okay with it. At least for a few years. It'll be okay.
Yeah. You'll hit that point sooner or later, probably. Emma, where are you located?
I'm in Boston. I graduated last year from my undergrad, and I'm not in school right now, so I'm the only one. Oh, and Matthew, our bassist, is in San Diego at UC San Diego.
Really? Wow. Okay. Cool. Wow. So you guys are traversing the country. Right on. All right. Tyler, where are you located?
Finishing up my undergrad at NEC.
Gotcha. Cool. Yeah. So primarily still Boston based. It's so funny how there's like Boston and then San Diego. Alex is down in the middle in the South. Like wait, you'll have to get someone like up, Montana area, someone in Nebraska, like right in the center of the country.
Right, we just got to figure it out.
Well, Alexis is somewhere back home in the plains, and then Xiaoyu's in the middle of China, so I guess that'll count.
You are
international corporation.
Exactly. You're gonna have to remind me. There was a reason we did all this. What? Where were we going with this?
We were just doing a run of introductions so people who've listened know who's been talking, right? Know what we do, who we are. There was another reason later, but I don't remember what it was.
There was, yeah. I asked what the next step was for the podcast, but then there was something else.
I mean, the podcast is going to take a new form moving forward. We're going to start doing some collaborative pieces that are built on virtual mediums for all of us that were existing pieces, and we will interview the composers, but it's more about spotlighting an ensemble work. So currently, we're finishing up work on Pamela Z's 20 Answers. Which is Magic 8 Balls, and like we're all recording separate tracks and layering. And where the future lies in terms of performance, we have no idea. And the point is that we're all here doing this, committed to doing this together. And whatever 2021, 2022 throws at us, being across the country, whatever it is, wherever we end up, the reality is that we'll keep doing this for as long as we can because it's what's making us happiest now.
Oh, beautiful. Yeah, that's great. I love that you're just focusing on what you can do right now, and keeping an open mind. How important that is in this time, because I mean, all of us have been in this ridiculous, just insanity of a whirlwind of the year 2020.
It's been fun to bring some amount of collaboration, even if it's this way, into the year, to find something to make joy in. Totally.
Well, you definitely did that with the podcast, and I honestly am psyched and can't wait to see what sort of things you have cooking and what's going to come next.
Well, Adam, this has been awesome. Thank you for having us.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Fun.
Thanks
for
talking to us.
Yeah. No, I appreciate you all coming on, your professionalism and everything that you have to say, and for having some laughs with me too.
Always important.
Always.
Yeah, you can see I'm a pretty goofy guy. So before we stop this though, is there anything that you want to tag at the end here? Any social media, or if you got any kind of like things planned, like a Zoom performance or something?
Yeah, I mean, you can find all our socials, Alinéa. We're on Instagram and Facebook. YouTube is obviously where you can find the podcast. I'm working on one of my projects that I'll do over the winter time is putting the audio of the episodes up on an actual podcast so we can get it on like Spotify and such, so we can take the podcasts to go. So that'll come soon. Website is alineaensemble.org. Coming soon-ish is the Pamela Z. We're in the process of recording that. We've got a few other things in the works that will hopefully manifest at some point. But yeah, I think that's about it.
Check out the website, follow us on socials. We'll keep posting, and keep listening to this podcast because it's doing awesome things.
Yes.
Oh, thank you very much. You're all a bunch of sweethearts. Goddamn.
Well, Adam, go enjoy the rest of your evening. This has been so much fun.
I will. Hey, thank you all, and enjoy your night. We'll talk very soon.
Yes, take
Appreciate
it easy,
it. Thank you.
Yeah.
Bye.